Welcome to the Jesus Movement podcast, presented by Awaken the Dawn. We host conversations so you can hear stories from across the movement, receive fresh biblical insights, and gain practical tools to experience more of Jesus' presence in your life, ministry, and city, because we believe Jesus changes everything.
Hey everybody, this is David Vallier, and welcome to the Jesus Movement podcast presented by Awaken the Dawn. And I am so excited that I have one of my favorite people, musicians, artists, and just the most overall cool person in my opinion. I've got MIsty Edwards here with us live. We're actually in Kansas City right now, or Grandview if you want to get technical, but MIsty, it's so great to have you on this podcast with me today.
I love it.
Yeah. We just flew in here and, one of the first things I thought of was like, we got to talk to MIsty. It's just, if you want to talk worship, you want to talk music. That's what I love about you is it's not just, oh, hey, I'm a worship leader, but like you're a musician. You love melodies and theory and all the things. And I love that about you. But most of all, just you as a person, just what you carry, both in worship and just in a relational aspect is so amazing. And it's just been an honor to get to know you and a joy, really.
Well, it's mutual, very mutual.
Oh, well, thank you.
Kindred spirits are hard to find.
For real. I mean, yeah. And I do feel that with you. And
For sure.
It's so awesome. So I just want to jump right in. On this podcast, we just like to hear about, your journey, where you've been in life. I know many of us are aware that are probably listening to this of your story and, your background, but just to kind of do a little quick refresher, you're mostly known for your worship and your songs and all of that. Could you just give just a brief overview of what got you into all of this? House of Prayer, leading worship, writing songs, creativity. What was kind of your first step into this?
Yeah, well, it's kind of an interesting question because I did grow up with music. My mom's a music teacher, but I never thought of myself as a musician or a singer. My sister was a singer. My brother was a worship leader. So it was their thing. So you can even ask anybody around here. I said for the first 3 years of IHOP, I'm not a singer. I'm not a singer. I'm not a singer. I'm not a singer. I do like 2 or 3 chords. My mom was a music teacher, but I literally cannot remember a single lesson.
Oh, wow. How long did she teach, just in school or just?
She taught privately at home.
Oh, wow.
She taught piano. I mean, she has a degree in voice.
Wow.
So she would teach voice, but she sings more opera, more classical. And so when you're a kid, it's like, no, thank you.
You're right. Yeah. You're like, I am not doing that.
But now I wish I would have learned. I'm like, I could have paid attention. I could have spared myself so much trouble.
Right.
But I thought music was kind of manipulative. I wanted to be a lawyer, fight for social justice.
A lawyer?
That was what I was hoping to become.
Who
knows if I would have ever done it.
You'd actually probably be a really great lawyer.
I do argue well.
Yeah. I would love to see that. In some multiverse out there, like MIsty Edwards, the lawyer. That would be really cool.
The bad thing about a lawyer is they mostly do paperwork. So I probably would have been bored out of my mind.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So when the House of Prayer started is really when I kind of fell into music. Because there was only 25 of us on staff, or even smaller than that. I was one of 5 interns, and we were going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nonstop live music. So everybody and their mother and their aunts and their uncles and their dogs were singing. We were all singing.
Right, everybody, all deck.
It was all hands on deck.
Wow.
Yeah, so I kind of just fell into it. But I remember the first time I led at IHOP, I literally knew 2 chords, and I ran out of the room. I had to go for 2 hours. And you can't stop because the fire cannot go out, right?
And you're talking about that's the first time you've led on a mass level?
Yeah. I mean, This was back in the trailer, so there were no cameras. This was 20 years ago.
Gosh, yeah. It's hey, go lead worship and then go for 2 hours. Whoa.
Yeah, and I'm not a worship leader at all. And I remember I ran out of the room, and I was like, I will never do that again.
Wow.
But then over time, of course, I fell in love. I fell in love with it because I fell in love with the prophetic. Yeah. I fell in love with the spontaneity. I fell in love with the spirit. And then I began to love music more and more and more. I mean, I like music growing up.
Right.
And it just kind of happened. And I found that river within. And when I created music from that river within, and then, collaborating with some fantastic bands that the Lord brought.
Right. Yeah. I remember some of your older band.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the guy. He was a drummer. Paco, man. I remember
Soul
watching those
of my
videos.
soul, heart of my heart.
Like, I just remember seeing that guy. I was like, that dude's got the juice. Like, and Cassie and, all, that band was like.
Brandon Hampton.
Yeah, Brandon Hampton.
David Breimer. All those guys were on my team. John Thurlow.
All those guys I remember seeing, and just like, I've never heard anything like that before. They seem to really like, because you could go to churches or even like bands, bars, whatever. You could see bands that like spend time together, and then other like guys who are gigging. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You guys were not gigging. Like, this was rooted deep. There was a flow. There was an understanding. And that was just so cool, so unique, at least for me as a young person, just watching that. I'd never saw anything like that before.
We didn't know what we were doing. It was just kind of, the House of Prayer kind of just started. I mean, at that point, it'd been going for a little while, but I think we were just creating, we were following the instinct.
Right,
and those are fantastic musicians too. So it's not all instinct. They're very skilled. But looking back, I go, that was a really special time. For me, it was really special.
And so I'm curious, and one of the things when you were talking about, you started and you didn't know what you were doing, did you ever really have anyone that was kind of mentoring you through this? Like, was there a key person? For me, I can look back and say, Susie Uriah was, she's like my spiritual mother. Like, she taught me all things worship. Like, was there someone like that for you?
That's an interesting question. I would say from a distance, for sure. I mean, Kevin Prosh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we
would be,
Kevin. Yes.
Someone that I watched from a distance. I didn't know him personally at the time. The House of Prayer really formed, oddly enough, Mike Bickle, who's not even a musician.
Right, but his heart.
He feels stuff. Like he'll go, do that again, or that song, or that melody. He was always pulling that kind of stuff out. So as far as mentoring step by step, honestly, it would be more Mike.
Wow.
Which is weird.
But isn't that interesting? Because like people that are listening, even myself, I would not have expected that answer. Like I was thinking you would say like some, grand musician who we never heard of. But isn't that cool by, facilitating an atmosphere, honestly, where you're actually through Mike's enablement of go and do this, you're actually learning before the Lord.
Yes.
With friends, with people you trust. Like, that's so unique.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
I think because it was so much spontaneity, because at least 50% of what we do, and honestly, it's more like 80%, is spontaneous. And so I learned very early to follow my instinct, the subliminal flow of thought, and not really think about, is this musically allowed or not?
Right.
I just did it. Yeah, I was like, okay, we're just going to do it. And leaning into my band and not overthinking it actually created a flow, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because we were going from the subliminal flow of spontaneity.
Right.
I mean, the beauty of the House of Prayer is just constant spontaneity.
Yeah. Which is, again, I think has changed so many people's lives. And honestly, given a generation permission to have a different sound.
Yeah.
And to do things in a new way. Like, I think of pioneers in worship in, I would say, our modern day. Like, I think of the House of Prayer. I think of, I am biased when I say this, Morning Star Worship.
Morning Star.
I mean, I will always be pro Morning Star Worship. Susie, Don, Leonard, you guys are amazing.
Those guys, right up there with Kevin Prosh.
Oh, yeah.
So influential to me.
Amazing. And you see that kind of stuff and you're like, wow. Like, I know you, because I know you, Misty, and I know you would probably never say this, but I'm going to say it for you. You changed a whole generation. You enabled people to like, man, I remember, there's that meme. Have you seen that meme when it's like first time hearing a Misty Edwards song? And then it goes,
you said that to me.
Like that was like, that's real. Like that's a real thing. Like, and like, it's, to me, it's like the highest compliment. Cause like, that's really how I felt. I remember, and many others pressing play, hearing these songs and being like, where did I just go? Like not only musically, but spiritually, like a connection with the Lord. And wow, it's just so great to be able to look back at that and then see where we are now, and where we're going and just the different expressions of worship that were once kind of niche. Now people are
mainstream.
Yeah. Even to the point where we're like, well, what's next?
Yeah, I'm at that point.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question for you. Well, it's a kind of a twofold question, but, kind of hearing where you came from and the sound that you created. My first part of the question is, what's Misty doing, these days, and where do you see yourself going? And then second, and we can get to this in a minute, but would be, where do you see worship going?
Yeah.
And like in good and bad ways. Like, let's not just talk about the good. Like, are there some things that we need to correct, or are there some things that maybe we need to do less of or more of, just that kind of thing. But first off, what are you doing now? Like, what's happening? And
yeah, I know I've kind of been missing in action as far as the public eye, not so much on social media or even leading at IHOP, but I am here in Kansas City full time in the prayer room, traveling a little bit. But I was living in Jerusalem for about 18 months, in and out.
So jealous.
Yeah, you should be, because it's amazing.
I remember you posted a video once of this street performer. And his melody sticks with me always.
That
it's
guy,
so cool.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't want to be married, but I would have married him. His voice was just like, I don't even know what he was singing about, but it was so beautiful.
Wow. Yeah. It was honestly one of the most beautiful melodies I've ever heard. And in just the streets and everything, it just looks so unique and cool.
Yeah. And the Lord really put me in the perfect spot, because I was right above the outdoor outdoor market.
Oh, so cool.
It was right before COVID.
Oh,
so,
perfect.
Yeah. So I did that for about 18 months, but then I've been back since 2020, and I am discipling, doing a lot of leadership stuff.
Yeah.
And then musically, I'm kind of playing it by ear.
Yeah. It's funny, right before we started this, Misty and I were actually talking about like life on the other side. Just kind of like, Misty and I both have been leading worship kind of in a leadership role, not kind of, in leadership roles for decades, really. And I've actually transitioned into a new role and had some time where I could, just see from the other side, like as a attendee, and we were just talking about the difference that it really is. And like, wow, it's just like, wow, I have no responsibility, in that leading worship moment. And it's really nice,
It is nice.
but it'll always be in us, and the leading and the worship and all that. And those seasons aren't over, but it's just like those little moments of like being able to go to a worship service and like fully just soak it in.
Yes.
Wow. So we get it now. All you guys who are listening, like we understand.
I know. I'm mad
the enjoyment that you guys get to have.
The bums that just sit there. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
It's a real treat to be able to go and just worship the Lord just in full abandonment. I was even telling Misty, like, you can even be there and just be like, I'm going to fully engage, or maybe I'll just observe and soak it in. Like, wow,
No, it's been nice, especially
great.
Being here at the House of Prayer, because for 20 years, I was leading minimum of 6 sets, usually twice that amount every week, which is amazing. And I actually love immersion. I thrive in immersion.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fantastic schedule. But to be back here and to just see the musicians that the Lord's brought to this house and the humility and to receive from that has been really sweet.
Y'all do have some really killer musicians
I
here.
know.
We're actually in a studio here in the prayer room, and there's a guy playing named Philip Yu.
Oh,
and every time I've had Misty out, I'm always like, bring Philip, because this guy can play like an orchestral piece, and like who knows what else he'll bring in.
Yeah,
and it looks like he's just standing there.
I know,
and it's just like the most magical thing you've ever heard in your life. And so the musicians that you guys have brought up here have just been incredible.
Some really good ones. We've been very blessed.
Yeah, the list just goes on and on. Yeah, it's crazy. So as we were talking about that, we kind of heard where you're going and what you're doing these days. But like worship in general, like what's your take on it? Like, do you have a hot take? Do you have like maybe like just kind of like, I think it's great? Or maybe do you have something most people don't think of? Just curious.
I mean, honestly, this may be bad. I don't actually listen to a lot of worship music.
Hey, Misty, me neither.
Okay.
Can I really tell you the people I listen to?
Yeah.
Like there's 3. You, Sarah McMillan.
Yes, of course.
I think it's now that I'm saying it out loud, it's all girls. You, Sarah McMillan, and Susie.
Oh, yeah.
The only 3 worship leaders I listen to.
I love Sarah and Susie.
Don't judge me.
Yeah, I don't listen to a lot. I mean, I'm in music all day, so I hear the new stuff, but I hear it secondhand.
Right.
Yeah, it's just I'm in music so much. That's why I don't listen to a lot.
Right.
So I don't have a really good feel for where the worship movement is necessarily.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a certain formula that people can get in. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, once you get into a formula, there's nothing wrong with that, but it loses something.
Yeah.
So that would be my negative. But the positive is that because of where the music industry is, anybody, everybody, whosoever can do it.
Right.
You can record an album very inexpensively.
Right.
You can learn to play an instrument. I like the fact that anybody can do it right now.
Yeah.
That is exciting to me, that the hierarchy of music has dissolved.
Yeah.
And I think that that's God, because he wants little houses of prayer all over the world or little worship moments. He wants the people to do the stuff.
Yeah.
Not to just be the rock star. So I think that part is really exciting, that people are doing the stuff.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I've felt, even, talking with our Awaken the Dawn team and all this kind of thing, is that the empowerment message for creatives and musicians is where we need to lean into.
Absolutely.
So like the separation between, hey, here's the anointed ones and here are the rest of you, has to dissolve.
Yes.
Because there is such a sound and a creativity. Like you could even probably speak to this, Misty, like the most anointed worship moments usually don't come from this worship leader singing this amazing song. It's when the room engages. Like, for instance, the voice is lifted up.
Yes.
The shouts that extend past the feelings of even comfortability. Like, is comfortability a word? Is that a word?
Sure.
Well, I'm going to make it a word. But being comfortable or, those kinds of moments where it's everyone, and I feel just like you're saying, there is that empowerment where it's like, there's no more hierarchy. Yeah. It's just like this person, in Saskatchewan has a song and it's anointed and they could release it like that. And it's unto the Lord.
Yes.
And we all get to enjoy it.
Yes. No, I love that. And I do think that there's more and more of a hunger for presence worship.
Yes.
And because we've learned to put on a pretty good show in the worship world.
Right.
And again, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I like lights and all that kind of stuff. And so we've learned how to put on a show. But I think there's a real hunger for presence. Yeah. And I believe God is going to show up in our worship times. Yeah. With healings, like actual healings. Yeah. Not a man calling out sickness on a stage necessarily, but in our worship, our vertical worship, where there will be signs and wonders and healings and deliverance and people really encountering God. And even if that's just a simple love song and people are just crying and weeping and loving God, that's as big of a miracle as anything. Yeah. When the heart is tender. So I think that's where it's going.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I am in 100% agreement with you there. Yeah. And I think it's exciting times. Like I love, the nameless, faceless, prophecy. Like I love that. I have heard it a gazillion times to the point where like there's been some cynicism come up, like, because I'm not going to try to come across as like, oh, I'm leaning into that. Sometimes I'm like, ugh. But I really do feel like we might actually be stepping into that.
I wonder, everything that's going on in the world right now.
Like, I'm like, this could be it. This could be the time where this song comes out and we might not even know who ever wrote it.
Right.
But it impacts the world, and it ministers to the Lord and people are getting saved. And like you said, healings and signs and wonders. And that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, me too.
And, I think it really comes out of places like this. Like we're sitting here in IHOP, prayers being lifted up 24/7. At some point he's gonna come through. Yeah, at some point. And like, hey, I think we might be entering into that season.
It has to happen one day. It'd be a day just like this. Yeah. And whether it's here or wherever it is. Yeah. There's been so much seed sown. Yeah. For that day.
Yeah. Well, you're getting me all revved up here. I'm like wanting to be like, let's do it.
Yeah. And we can't make it happen. That's the downside of a vision like that. I like a vision that I can have a practical how to make it happen. Right. This is a vision you can't make happen. Right. But you can keep asking and keep believing and keep fasting, and because that's ultimately the purpose of music, right? Yeah. Just to carry the presence.
Yeah. That's so good. Now I'm gonna have a couple other questions and then we'll let you go. But here's just a real like practical, like let's get to know Misty Edwards. So music, what's your vibe? What do you like? What's some of the music you listen to? Like, I'm very curious, like your music taste, because I feel like it's wide and broad.
Yeah, I might be off pretty wide and broad. Yeah. I didn't grow up listening to any music, any secular music. I wasn't allowed to. I wasn't even allowed to listen to contemporary Christian music. So anything with a 2/4 beat was considered demonic.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So a few years back, I really went on a music education. Just wanted to listen to all kinds of things. So yeah, my taste is pretty broad. I mean, I hesitate to say because I don't want to lead anybody astray. Right. Because they might be like, oh my God, she listens about that. Yeah. But I went on a journey and I said, whatever moves my heart, I'm going to study it. I'm going to say, is it the beat that's moving my heart? Is it the lyric? Is it the chord progression? Like what about this melody? What is it about this song? Like, so I walked around with Shazam, or what do you call it? What is it?
Yeah, Shazam. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if I was in a grocery store, if I was at a movie, if I was scanning through the radio station, or if whatever, I was just, who is this? That moves my heart. And trying to kind of study what moves the heart. But I try not to do a lot of secular music now. I did go through a couple years where I listened to a lot just to study it.
Yeah.
And now I'm more just, again, I'm in it all day long. So when I go home, I don't want to, I don't really want to listen to music.
Right. I think that, you saying the moving thing, like you could feel that even in your music, like, that not many worship leaders' music moves me as much as some of the things that you've written. And I'm not saying that in flattery. The guy who's recording it will confirm. I have said the same thing. Like, I really love moving music.
Me too.
The chord progressions, the melodies when they're really thought out and they're intentional. Like if any of you songwriters out there, be intentional with your melodies.
Yes.
Like be intentional with your moments of music. I'll even go as far as to say this, like, don't build so much.
Oh,
like, you get what I'm saying? Like stew in the moment. Build the tension within the musical and melodic moments.
Yes.
Because, I think that's what heaven's like. It's like, let's follow the wave. And, it's not just like, it's there's
space,
the low
and
space and the high.
Yes,
the in-between. That's where the
Daniel Lanois is probably one of my favorite music producers.
Yes.
And, he did... what's her name that did Wrecking Ball?
Wrecking Ball. Oh, Miley Cyrus.
No.
Oh.
Not that Wrecking Ball.
I was like, Miley Cyrus, right?
The one that, I'm not a huge fan of her. Emmylou Harris.
Oh, yes.
But I love Daniel Lanois' production.
Yeah.
Because he leaves a lot of space.
Yeah.
And so I love everything that he does.
Yeah. So do you think that, just so people can understand when we're talking about this space, this musical kind of awareness, do you feel like that's something that really needs to be adopted more within worship? I
think of worship as a corporate meditation, a corporate contemplation, the corporate mystic.
Yes, yeah.
And if you're going to meditate, you have to slow down. I don't mean just in tempo, and I don't even just mean in repetition. I mean, you have to create space.
Yes.
Because otherwise worship becomes a monologue instead of a dialogue.
Yeah.
And he can't get a word in edgewise. It is just like, we're just like, beauty, 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 bye. And then we check out and he's just like,
right, yeah.
I'm trying.
Right, yeah.
And he's just standing there like, what was that about?
Why, yeah,
I mean, what kind of relationship would you want to be in where people just stand there? I mean, I guess if you're egocentric enough, but our God is not egocentric.
Right,
He's not just looking for a bunch of people to shout at him how beautiful he is.
Right.
And then jump around. And he wants to communicate.
Yes, yeah. That is,
you got to leave a little space.
So good. That is so good. It is like one of my heart's cries right now is when I talk to any worship team, I'm just like, hey, let's try not to build. Almost to the point where I've had to almost correct myself a little bit. Because I've missed some moments where it actually calls for it.
Yeah, but we've way overdone it.
Yeah, because I've been so anti it where I'm just like, I've literally looked at a drummer and threatened their life. Don't you dare.
Yeah.
Give me the backbeat,
I went through a phase where it was like, build, but bigger. And then I think you and I would have been part of the thing that created this thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's our fault, Misty. It's our fault. Yeah.
Because we just build. Everything is build. But now I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
Because it's too predictable and there's no space.
Yeah.
So I even tell my drummer, I'm like, just don't even touch the cymbal unless you're going to play more orchestral. Like a cymbal should be orchestral, melodic, not just.
Yeah. And I think this is really good to talk about too, because there's different expressions, and I think that it's really important to be able to lean into it, and also I feel like there is moments in time where there is a little bit more wind on certain things. And I really do feel the creating that space.
I think that's where
the
future
wind
is.
Yeah, exactly. It's the best word, future.
Yeah.
Let's lean into that and let's champion it.
Yeah. And leave the room in a corporate contemplation.
Yes. Yes. I don't know if I've heard that before. That is
like where
really
you go in
good.
your mind when you meditate, facilitate that in a room.
Yeah.
If you can get the whole room or at least 50% of the room visualizing the same thing at the same time, the same man at the same time, and their hearts moving toward him at the same time. I mean, that's when we become one, really. Yeah, just think of it as the corporate Madame Guyon.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. I love that. Well, I don't want to keep you too long, so I'm going to ask you one last thing, and then we'll go from there. And this is kind of like a broad question, but take it whatever direction you'd like. But what are you kind of, without I don't want to go too deep into your life, but like, what are you experiencing with the Lord right now?
Yeah.
Just so people can maybe just get a little bit of an understanding, like maybe they're experiencing something with the Lord right now. I want to try to ask everybody this.
Yeah.
Just to kind of say, what does your walk with Jesus look like right now?
Yeah. In this specific season, like this specific time.
In this season, yeah.
Yeah, I would say I am undone. I'm trying to find a way to say it without it sounding cliche, because it's very authentic language to me. I am undone by his perpetual desire for me.
Yeah.
Not just mercy. Well, first, mercy.
Right.
I need mercy.
Yeah, we all do, yes.
But that even in the mercy, it's because his desire for us is so strong. Like, we're not just a project to make him look good, like a mercy project.
Right.
That's part of what we do. But that he actually, John 17, desires. That word desire is so strong that I don't annoy him, that he's not tolerating me, that he's not just being merciful or patient or kind. All of those things I love about him, but that desire gets me because he's so unrelenting. No matter how many times I have ran away from him, my story is complex. And the whole way through, he's like, I want you. I want you. I want your heart. I want your mind. I want your soul. And I'm not going to relent until I get you. And so that makes me want to respond to him in the same way. If you're going to be so wholehearted, then I'll do the same thing back to you. So that's kind of where I am right now. I'm really moved by his desire because it's so relentless. And I know what I deserve. I know where I should be. And that he's still as persistent as he was when I was in my 20s. It's just very moving to me.
Wow, that is really, really good. I think we all need to get a little bit of that perspective, like, his mercy, but then not only that, he really...
Yeah.
I love that you said we're not a project to make him look better.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes, I find myself living under that sometimes. I think a lot of people find themselves living under that, almost getting lost in this mass purpose.
Yeah.
Which is good and, like the purpose of fulfilling the kingdom of God. But then we forget that he just loves us.
He desires us.
Yeah.
We are trophies of his grace, and we are demonstrations of his mercy. And this is beautiful. Israel is a story of mercy, but Israel is also a story of desire. Yeah, because it's one thing to be kind. It's another thing to want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I need both. I need kindness and desire. But I do need kindness, so I never want to downplay that.
Wow. Not to overstate something, but I really feel that could change people's lives.
It changed my life. Changed my life.
And really leaning into that. And one other thing I want to touch on that you said was that he desires you just as much now that he did in your 20s.
Yeah.
So a large portion of our listening audience is, Gen Z, millennials. And I think sometimes in our head, we think when we get beyond that like the fire dies and that we no longer have like this calling, but like that is not true.
No.
Like to me, the days get brighter.
Yeah.
I'm 34, but like even some of these younger guys I'm able to like bring up, I have more fulfillment from that than being on a stage in front of tens of thousands. That's whatever.
Well, and he's an all-consuming fire.
Right.
So that he's constantly consuming. He's not going out. And I think in our culture, maybe every culture, we're so infatuated and in love with the beginning of love.
Yes.
All of our movies end at the beginning of love. The books end at the beginning of love. Most of our music ends at the beginning of love. If you're like me, you're in love with the beginning of love.
Right.
In relationships, I like it to a point, and then I'm like, okay, peace out. I like the beginning of love, right?
Right.
And I think we approach God the same way, and we think, oh, he loses interest, or we lose interest, just like we would in a relationship. But he's all-consuming fire. So he's actually grows. It doesn't. In fact, we're at the beginning of love until we die with him. We're going to live for billions of years.
Yeah.
Like this is the beginning of love for the next 90 years.
Right.
We got it made.
Wow. Yeah. You're dropping some bombs, Misty, today. I mean, just like, wow, that is so good. I think anyone that's listening to this, like lean into that, he desires you just as much as he did in the beginning. Yeah. And it only gets better.
And you're still at the beginning when you die.
Yeah. Wow. And that's a whole nother thing. Like you're blowing my mind here. Like it's almost one of those things where you want to like scream with glee, but then also rock in a corner. Yeah, when you really contemplate it, it's like one of those things that's like both beautiful and terrifying all at the same
like
time.
when I was a kid on my swing set going, forever, forever,
Yes.
forever, how long is forever?
Right.
And then get terrified.
Gosh, yeah. That's literally me going to sleep every single night. Yeah, I'm like, oh, good night. Eternity. You know? No, but that's amazing. So if you would leave the people with one thought, anybody, creatives or accountants or whatever, that are listening, what would that be before we let you go?
I would say he wants you, he desires you, and he wants an equally yoked love. He wants a response that's equal to his, not in size, but in all. And so if you really believe he wants you, then let's give him our all. There's no other response. If you really believe it, I mean, most of us don't actually believe it, but if you believe it and you know a little bit of who he is, the God of all creation, the Genesis 1 God, like if we believed half of what we talk about as Christians, if we even believed half of it, our minds would be like, psh.
Right.
So I'd say believe it and then respond.
That's really good. Hey, I think after this episode, I feel like you and I just need a talk show.
Let's do it.
Yeah, like the Misty and David show.
That would be so fun.
And we could just talk about whatever, you
It'd
know.
be so fun.
I really think we'd have a blast.
We would.
You know,
we
could just
talk
keep
little dreadlocks in there.
Yeah, you could just keep dropping these bombs. I'll just keep I'll just kind of be the funny guy in the corner
you got
and
the
like
bombs,
and wow. But thank you so much, Misty, for taking the time to join us, and it's been a real honor, and I'm sure we'll be doing more things together and hearing more stuff. Can I ask you one more question before I let you go?
Of course.
Are we looking? Maybe, let's say, even if it's 5-10 years down the road, another Misty Edwards album at some point?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, I miss recording. I miss creating.
Yeah.
I love the process. So I'm sure I will write more songs and create. I don't know. Maybe a live album. I don't know.
Yeah, I do love your live stuff.
90% of stuff is live. The last one I did was in the studio, and I liked that album, but it lacked the oomph. Something about live.
Yeah. Well, I'll be cheering you on over here if you decide to do it. And then I'll send you like every 6 months text, say, just please record it now. Please, 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 please.
I'd like to redo some stuff, actually.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for listening to the Jesus Movement podcast that was presented by Awaken the Dawn. And you'll be hearing much more from our host, Matthew Lilly, myself, and maybe even others. And we have all kinds of guests coming on. And so we appreciate you, and tune in for more, and we'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Jesus Movement podcast. If you would, please share this episode with some of your friends and post it on social media. We also want to invite you to follow or subscribe to this podcast wherever you're tuning in so that you can continue to get the new episodes every month. We also want to invite you to visit our website at awakenthedawn.com. If this podcast has been a blessing to you, please consider making a donation to help support our ministry and to help fund this podcast. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and don't forget, Jesus changes everything.